I thought I was smart. I thought I was well informed, but I was missing half the picture that was being pushed out to the American public. It took Charlottesville in August of 2017 to push me over the edge when Trump said, there were good people on both sides. And that's when I said, that's it. The more information you have, the more points of view you have, the better off you are.
Let's get right into it. Welcome back to What Do We Do Next? Every weekday, while most of us are reaching for coffee, Howard Polskin is already deep inside a world that most of us would avoid, scrolling through dozens of right-wing media outlets so you don't have to. He's not doing it out of masochism. He's doing it because he believes that understanding what the other side is actually reading, thinking, and feeling is one of the most important things a journalist can do right now. Howard spent decades at the highest levels of American media, senior roles at CNN, Sony Corporation of America, and the Trade Association for Consumer Magazine Industry. In 2017, he did something that nobody else was doing. He launched The Writing, the world's only newsletter dedicated to analyzing right-wing media for mainstream and progressive audiences. Every day, he curates 15 headlines that capture what the conservative world is thinking, and he sends it to thousands of subscribers around the globe. His research has been cited by outlets worldwide, and in April 2026, he appeared on Fast Politics with Molly Jung Fast. He writes for MSNow.com, Mediate, and the Columbia Journalism Review. He's a Syracuse, I can't talk, Dan, I need more coffee. He's a Syracuse Newhouse grad, a board advisor there, and has judged the prestigious Mirror Award since 2006. Today, he's here to pull back the curtain on a parallel media universe, and what does it mean for all of us? So thanks for coming on the show, Howard.
Pleasure to be here, Molly.
Hey, man, when you reached out to me and you gave me your pitch, I was like, the least I can do is have you on my show. I've all the abuse you're taking daily, just been reading this stuff. You're out here doing the Lord's work, and I don't say that lightly, but I really am impressed by that. And a lot of times, my dad and I have differing political views, but I've been telling him for years that I bet if we sat down, we'd probably agree on 90% of it, but you're just getting the wrong sound bites, and so am I, And so how do we get to that place? And now it feels even more impossible to ever get to that conversation, to be honest, after last year. But we're not getting anywhere. We're just yelling at each other. We're not getting anywhere. And so, what was that moment for you that you were like, I'm going to do this? Because starting this in 2017, I guess we were still in the throes of everything, but what was that moment?
It started the morning after Trump was elected in November 2016. I woke up and I was like, how did we get to this moment? Is this real? When are the adults going to come back and say, this has been a big friggin' mistake?
Just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. Do over, mulligan. Let's have another vote. Let's count again. And no, it was a fair and square election. And I right away started thinking, what shaped people's opinions that brought them to this? And very quickly, within a few weeks, I started, I'd never been to foxnews.com. I'd never been to the National Review's website. I'd never went to Breitbart. And so I started going to these places, and it was this whole alternative universe. I thought I was smart. I thought I was well informed, but I was missing half the picture that was being pushed out to the American public. And so I started in early 2017 just on a Word document. Every day I'd go to these sites and I'd write down some of the outrageous headlines. And I started doing that for about a month. And then I looked at it and I go, wow, this kind of tells a story. I wish someone could push that to me. And no one was doing it. So I thought maybe this is something I can do. But it took Charlottesville in August of 2017 to push me over the edge when Trump said, there were good people on both sides. And that's when I said, that's it. I'm going out. I'm going to do it. And I launched in September 17th, 2017. And if it wasn't for my sisters and a few close friends, I would have had no subscribers for the first 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I just kept doing it. It was kind of a journey of discovery. And gradually it started picking up steam. Luckily, in my background, I know how to promote brands, and I was savvy on how to get some attention. And I knew how to research audience trends, and that started getting me attention. And very slowly, it started picking up. And here we are today.
And how many subscribers do you have now?
I never give the exact number, but let's just say it's not enough that we could be having this discussion on my yacht off the coast of
Yeah.
Central America.
Damn it, Howard, get
The
on to it,
thousands,
man.
but
Come on. What
there
are
are
we?
thousands. There are thousands. I have thousands, and very influential people, people high in government, media, politics. It's a good list, and it keeps me on my toes. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Listen, we're in this society where like everybody thinks quantity beats quantity or quantity beats quality, and it does not. Like the right 1,000 people reading your list that can actually make impact is much better than 100,000 people deleting it first thing in the morning. You know what I mean? So, well, and you understand that better than anybody. And that's kind of my question. Was it your background that helped you have the audacity, if you will, to launch it? Or was it just like you hit a wall and you're like, I don't care if this works or not. I just need to do this for myself.
Well, one of the things is, and maybe you have this as well, Molly. It's kind of like, well, what makes me the expert? But if you just kind of do it every day,
Yeah.
oh, you know, call yourself an expert.
Yeah.
And that was part of it, and also because no one else was doing it, so I thought, well, I can claim this turf for myself. Also, in my background, what was very important, I had worked in the 90s at CNN. I ran the New York Public Relations Office, and at the time, um, CNN, part of Turner Broadcasting, and they were the biggest client of Nielsen ratings, and they had a big research department. And part of my job that I invented was every week we'd put out a report on the number of viewers to all the cable networks, including the Turner ones. And I worked very closely with the analysts at Turner Audience Research. So I became very comfortable analyzing audience data. And so when I launched the writing, no one was measuring the traffic to right-wing websites, whether how big they were, who was big, and who was growing and who was smalling and smaller. So I figured out how to do that, and that's become my calling card. And I do that every month. I release a report, and that gets me enormous attention around the world, and it's used by, you know, influential people and media outlets around the world.
That's super cool. Do people from the right ever reach out to you to want to
Yes,
talk
they
to you?
do. Yes, and I will say, at first I did this kind of anonymously. I didn't put my name on it. I was nervous, and I didn't know what the response would be, if I would be attacked, if I would be trolled, if I'd be doxxed. But after doing it for about a year and a half, I put a kind of a feisty 300-word introduction into every newsletter that I put out, and the newsletter is for free. And that, and no one attacked me. And and it turned out people really liked the attitude and the humor I brought in, and that was fine. And some people on the right actually reached out to me, and they would say, for instance, folks at the Heritage Foundation, which you would think I would never, ever, ever have a conversation with them. They said, if you're in Washington, why don't you stop by? And I've got a daughter who lives in Washington, and I went there. And to this day, I'm friends with them. I'm invited to the Christmas party every year, even though almost everything that they write and stand for, I'm opposed to. But I like to say, if we have to have these discussions, it's important, and try and have an open mind. Also, some people on the right, sometimes I need an email of someone in the White House or a right-wing politician, and the people on the right will give it to me. So that's been very nice, very nice. Now, some outlets on the right want nothing to do with me. They think that I'm an evil person. And, that's how it'll be sometimes. I accept that.
Can't win them all, you know.
That's right.
But I would imagine with you ranking these right wing websites, then they got your attention, or you got their attention. They
Yes,
want to
I
be on
do.
that list,
Absolutely. And I keep I do it very fairly. So, for instance, a few years ago, I had research that showed that wars was growing exponentially, and I wrote that. And sure enough, Alex Jones boasted about it in a tweet. Like, look at the writing says. I find that Truth Social's audience is growing many months. So even though I think what President Trump puts on Truth Social is vile, awful, awful stuff. When I show there's growth on his site, it's newsworthy, and I do not fudge the numbers. I call balls and strikes the way I see it, and you can't fake those numbers.
No, they want to fake the funk, but you can't do that.
Yes.
And that leads me to my next question. How do you stomach that? Because there's just stuff, and admittedly, I probably have to stop reading these headlines in the morning because before like 8 a.m. and coffee, the Irish Catholic filter is, let me tell you, I will say horrible things, and then I quite often delete them around 9:30. And so I definitely I'm trying to curb my ingestion of the news in the morning because it just sets me off, you know? And it makes me cry a lot because it's hard for me to understand. How do you stomach this stuff? Like, is it because you have this bigger mission of like, I'm here to do a job and not to like react to this? Like, or have you just grown a thick skin over the years?
Well, I'll put it this way. All right. So let's say you're a scientist. You're studying the Ebola crisis in Africa. You get the virus. You look at it under a microscope. Do you go and puke in a corner? Or do you study it and look like, how do we tackle this? How do we control this? What can we learn from looking at it? So I kind of take the same approach, very clinically, and see like, what are they saying? Is there a point there? So one of the things that I've learned, for instance, and this may not make me popular with some of your audience, is that for years it was like what would set off the right would be drag queen story hour in public libraries.
Yeah, they really get pissed
And
off.
and then I was like, well, they might have a point, like why do we have to do that? It's just going to piss off the right and push people who are maybe in the middle, political middle. It might push them more to the right because they don't agree with drag queen story hour. And it seems like that's something that you should give up. So, but there are certainly, I come across a lot of posts that are vile, racist, uh, sexist, anti-intellectual, anti-elitist, anti-cultural. So it can be upsetting, but it's easier to digest on a website. So for instance, if you watch Fox News primetime, it's harder to have that pounded into your head. And every now and then, when I'm on the road in my car, I'll put on a right wing podcast, and I'll be in traffic, and I want to turn the podcast off, and it's like being imprinted on my brain, and I can't stand that. So it's much easier to take in small bits on websites.
What do you think that we're getting wrong about the right?
That everything coming from the right is wrong. So you've got to look sometimes you got to look a little bit closer. So I'll give you a good point. So Trump's take on NATO, that the European nations aren't paying their fair due and stuff like that. Well, there's some part of that that's correct. So, a lot of Western European countries are very generous in their social nets. You can have, the whole month of August off or December off and stuff like that. Well, the government's paying for that and helping that. And it's like, well, maybe they should put more in the defense budget and don't have to be super, super generous like that. So there is kind of a point to that. And whether you agree with it or not, it's important to take a step back and try and understand it. my knee-jerk reaction to most things Donald Trump says is to just dismiss it all. But I realize there's sometimes a kernel of truth somewhere in there, and it's the way he goes about it and explaining it.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, my dad is a retired commander in the Navy and, Vietnam vet, and he's a very intelligent guy. And so it's just like I find myself absolutely befuddled as to how he could be on board with this stuff. And so I'm always trying to find, like, where is this kernel of truth, like you said? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like NATO everybody hasn't been paying their fair share of the dues. They haven't. And we've been taking on a lot of that. Now, does that mean that he should do what he's been doing? I don't know. But, like, you're right. To just completely ignore any sort of truth or validity because it's coming from the right is not going to help us, because it's the same thing they're doing with us. They think they think we all want everybody to be transgender with purple hair, and like it's like the comments people leave me, they're like, well, just because you're on welfare. I'm like, bro, I create jobs. Like do you actually believe the things that you think every single liberal is like a radical left scum with no job? Like, where are you even getting these talking points? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, So it's like we're both infected with the same disease.
Yeah, well, that's why I try and listen better rather than talk over it. And I also realize I have not for a few years tried to convince anyone on the right about my view. And usually when I meet someone on the right, from a right wing website or news outlet, I'll always say, we're probably not going to agree on a lot of stuff, on almost anything politically. But can we have a cup of coffee? So that I usually try and do it that way, and we get to a better place that way.
Are there any people on the right whose like commentary or writing that you not necessarily agree with, but you like or you
Sure.
respect? You know what I mean?
Well, a few people. So, as a writer, the writer who I admire the most for his wordsmithing is probably one of the most extreme columnists out there, and that's Kurt Schlichter of Town Hall. He scares me, his point of view. He's a lawyer. He's an Iraq war vet. He's a former stand-up comedian. He's written nonfiction books. He's written books. He's prolific. It's like he makes me look like a slacker. And he can turn a phrase like no one else can. But when you read his stuff, I mean, the first reaction when you read the stuff is like, oh, how can he say that? But when you take a step back, you go like, man, this guy's got talent. His talent is undeniable. There's other people like Rich Lowry, the editor-in-chief of National Review. Very smart guy. Whenever I read one of his stories, I'll read it very, very carefully because he usually has good points. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think it's worth reading. There's a woman who writes for this very tiny website called stevegruber.com. Her name is Liberty Page. Doesn't sound like a real name. Yeah. I don't know. But every day she's got 2 or 3 stories, and she writes with a lot of passion and power, and she's prolific. So it's like, she's doing what I'm doing. She's out there producing content and getting her voice heard, and God knows how she's making money and stuff like that. So I admire her from that point of view. There's this man, Ray Cardello. He writes this one-person blog, Conservative View from New Hampshire. He's out there every day, right? Every day he writes like a 1,000-word essay. Does it on Christmas and Easter. Every day of the year he does it. And so I admire his passion for it, even though, again, I'm like, I don't agree with so much what he says. And finally, there's another writer, Christian Toto. He writes the conservative entertainment blog, Hollywood in Toto. He just has a review where he slammed Steven Spielberg's new film, Disclosure Day. But most of the time, he's reviewing Hollywood films from a conservative point of view. So that's just a small list of people that I'm reading and may admire or like or follow.
And that's interesting. I think at the core, it boils down to like respect, and if we can respect one another as like human beings, and it gets easier to like have a conversation at all. Like you said, like let's just have coffee, or I can respect the work you do without agreeing with you. And I think that we're kind of in this all or nothing society. It's like you either have to be perfect or you're like dead to me. There's no like in between. And I get that even like Threads is an interesting platform. Like they either love you or they hate you. Like they are
Yeah.
like I posted something the other day, 6,000 likes. I post other stuff, they literally are like pitchforks coming for me. I'm like, it's you know what I mean? It's really wild. And like I'm legally disabled, and somebody was calling me like ableist and telling me that I was being like hurting disabled people. And I'm like, but I am a disabled person. Like like everybody put your pitchforks down for a moment. Like let's just. So that lack of respect is really where it's at. I mean, I've even been guilty of that too. Friendly fire on the internet when I'm like, "What'd you say?" And they're like, "Whoa, same team." And I'm like, "My bad." Like, I just feel like we've really lost like that sense of diplomacy. And I mean, understandably so. It's hard when you open up the news and they're like, "Oh, some schmuck in North Carolina wants to make it legal for people to kill me if they think I'm trying to have an abortion." It's really hard to not get really, really angry about that. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And hate all of them. And then it makes me look at every man and go, I don't trust you for nothing, buddy. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, is this at the core? So it's hard to maintain that kind of, that middle ground. So I definitely respect that you're doing that. I think it's.
I
Really
mean, Molly,
important.
every now and then I lose it. Every now and then I lose it. But I try and take a more moderate tone. Yeah, part of my North Star is there was there was a reporter at the onset of World War II named William Shire, stationed in Austria, and he worked for United Press International and then Associated Press, and he started reporting on the rise of the Third Reich. And he was one of the few U.S. reporters over there during the war, and he kept a very neutral tone. But because of his reporting, the United States was able to understand more about the rise of the Third Reich, and he wrote the best-selling book in the early '50s that's still used to this day, "The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich." And so again, he took that kind of more neutral approach and just was reporting on what was taking place without his personal emotions. We don't know what he was thinking according to his reporting, but it was very helpful. So that helps guide me as well.
Yeah, I don't think I'm capable of speaking or writing without my opinion being very clearly laid out
Well,
in it.
that's why you're good at what you do.
You
God bless
know,
you
the
for it.
jury's out on that one. But well, let's talk about like parallel universe, and like the right wing media where universal truths no longer feel universal, because I think for me that's been the hardest thing. Is like I grew up, I'm 50, and I went to Catholic school. My parents were very strict, military dad. I grew up thinking that there was like accountability. I grew up thinking that they're like, oh, that would never happen. They can't do that. I really lived under that, even until recently. You know what I mean? I still believe there was this semblance of like order or accountability or diplomacy. And it really seems to be gone. And it feels like both sides feel that about the other side. Like somebody the other day said that Democrats are pedophile worshipers. And I was like, we didn't vote for him though. So it's like, what does that mean for our democracy? Like, how do we get out of it? Is it more content like yours? Is it being willing to not just reach over the aisle, but peek over the aisle and just start with seeing what they say? Because I'm having a hard time seeing our way out of it.
I think I think the problem starts with Donald Trump because of what he says. Like he keeps just this past week, just saying the California elections were rigged.
I
Just
love
keep saying
inflation.
that.
I love the
Yeah,
inflation.
yeah. So when you keep saying that, it's like up is down. Like not like there's no truth in his world. As he's got the bully pulpit. So you have arguably the most powerful person in the world saying these upside down falsehoods. So how does society move forward from that? So once he leaves office, and I'm in the court that says that may not happen in the time frame we think it might happen. Um, maybe things will change then, and we can get our equilibrium back. I mean, it's so disturbing. Yet he's still talking about the 2020 elections, and that to have that should be a universal truth about the 2020 elections, the outcome of that election. And yet he's still creating doubt about it. And he's going to be creating doubt about what's going to be the election results in the California in the primaries on November 3rd.
Oh,
So
he's gonna, yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's going to mess with our heads. And it's it's very damaging to society.
It really is, and like less and less people are voting. Like, people are freaking about immigrants voting, and I'm like, or you could look at the records and see that less people are voting in general. So, you know what I mean? Like, so this idea that all these illegal immigrants are voting, it's like, maybe we wish they would, because people aren't voting anymore. Like the confidence in the election system is dropping every time they say something like this.
I mean,
Even
that is a foundation. The voting system is a foundation of our democracy. And to put that in doubt about the outcomes, it's completely poisonous.
It really and truly is. And even yesterday, like Thomas Massey made a little video, and I'm on the fence about him, but maybe he's my like gateway drug into the right wing media. But because he still has some pretty shit opinions about women's bodies and things like that I'm not down for, But Broken Clock is right twice a day, so I'll give him credit where it's due. But even he was talking about, he was like, oh, elections are stolen. There is election fraud, but not in the way you think. It's from donors and PAC money and that sort of, it's not from actual voter fraud, But like that also diminishes people's confidence in voter security, you know what I mean? Whether it's from voter fraud or interference or money or whatever, but it just weakens the whole operation.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so dangerous.
What do you think would happen if more people were paying attention to what the right was saying? What do you think the outcome would be of that if we actually started reading your newsletter every morning and not screaming at the sky?
I think it might opens people. It may have people understand the right a little bit better. Maybe be a bit more tolerant. I'm not saying it's going to. It might tone down the heated atmosphere a bit. On the other hand, it could do the opposite. Could make people pissed off that some of this stuff is being said. So it's listen. You can't. The more information you have, the more points of view you have, the better off you are. I mean, I would never argue to, what I see is, what I did wrong for a good part of my life. I was just getting my information from just a few select, powerful, well-regarded sources, but I didn't make enough effort to kind of look at other points of view and stuff like that. And I automatically assumed that if you didn't agree with my position, you were wrong. And I think that was not the correct way to go about it. And what happens as well in our fractured media environment, we go to news outlets, whether websites or podcasts or television shows that affirm our point of view rather than to look at other things. And listen, I get it. Our time is limited. So, why are you going to spend your precious time listening to someone who you don't agree with? But every now and then, it's not a bad thing to do. And that's why I focus so much on websites, because it's quicker. It's not like you have to listen to 5 Candace Owens podcasts in a given week, or Ben Shapiro, and take 5 hours of your time. You can do this, like you can read the writing, you can go through the newsletter in 2 minutes, you're done.
Like the Associated Press, right? Like I get my headlines
Yeah.
from them every morning. I get a little like bloop, okay, what's going on in
That's
the
it.
world? You know.
That's it. And you feel informed.
If I want to
Exactly.
go deeper,
Yes.
I can, but at least
Yeah.
I'm not ignorant of what's happening. Well, I salute you for that. I am making the commitment to join your newsletter and to just maybe read it after 9 a.m. and I've had coffee.
I am not responsible for your mental health, Molly. I don't.
Listen, after coffee, I'm like, I can't be bothered. Like, I think you're an idiot, but it doesn't upset me in the same way. So I need to learn to like stagger my content consumption until after coffee. But I really respect what you're doing, and I'm sure some people will listen and get pissed off. But at the end of the day, listen, the only way that we're gonna write this thing is by having conversations in our homes and in our peer groups. And like, that's the thing. I'm from Washington D.C., and for 20 years I was the only woman in the room, and I was the only white person in the room. And so I learned a little bit about allyship and what that looks like. And it's not performative. It's not about screaming on Facebook. It's like, what are the conversations you're having about race in all white rooms? What are the conversations that you're having about racism in rooms that you stand something to lose when you talk about those things? That's when the real allyship happens. And if you can't represent yourself and the people that you're trying to be an ally for in positive ways in those rooms, then don't do it. But screaming on Facebook and reposting videos of black people getting killed in the streets is not making black people any safer, right? And I have my friends go to me and say, hey, we really appreciate your activism, but could you ease up on posting so many of the actual videos? We don't really need to see it, right? So I have learned a lot from making a lot of mistakes, but the only way that I can be a good ally is because I'm in those other rooms that they're not in, and then I can challenge them because I'm one of them, right? I know what they're thinking. I don't agree with them, but they look like me, right? I have an opportunity, right? And it matters when I have something to lose because of that opinion in those all-white spaces, right? And I learned that very, very clearly. And I think that that is going to kind of transfer over. It's like, well, if we want to right this ship, then it starts with like your Trumper dad or your Trumper mom or your Trumper brothers and sisters. And if you can't, you know, I know way too many people that are just like, oh, we don't talk about any of that. I see them, we keep it surface. And I'm like, I kind of think that's shit, personally. I don't think that's a way to live. Like, that's just not how I'm not built that way. But I don't want to fight with them either. Like, I'm not interested in arguing with anybody either. And so maybe if I had a little bit more of their talking points, it would help me to be able to get closer to some of that middle ground. Because
And
somebody's
I
got
always
to...
admit, I always go to like, I am not happy with Joe Biden. Like, what a mistake it was for him. Like, so that kind of, there's a commonality. Like, we can
Yes.
agree on that, you know? Like,
Right.
that's pretty low hanging fruit, but it kind of takes the temperature down a bit.
Right, like,
Um,
let's not start with pedophiles and rapists. Let's just go to
yeah.
Biden
It's,
first and we'll ease on into it. Yeah, I mean, and I've done that too, like try to find a middle ground where I'm like, okay, you know, I wasn't really thrilled about him either. I didn't really want to, I get it, but like that, you know, the alternative wasn't this. So finding a middle ground seems like a really good place to start. So, you know, Howard, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for all the work that you're doing. I'm going to subscribe. We're going to put all your links in the chat so people can check it out and hopefully go subscribe. Maybe you need like a complimentary support group. Like, here's the writing and here's the writing support group for people who want to like get together and yell at each other for 20 minutes in Zoom. Can you believe it? But I do think that we need to hear what each other is saying if we're going to get anywhere.
agree. And thank you so much for having me on your show. You're great. Thank you.
Right back at you, Howard. I'm sure we would get along just fine. I'm sad I'm not in New York. We could go have a beer or something, or you
And
know.
I'm sad I'm not in Costa Rica.
Yeah, actually, I wish you were in Costa Rica. Let me reframe that. I don't really want to come to New York right now. Well, if you find yourself here, you let me know. And listen, if there's ever a time that you would like to come back on the podcast, or if there's somebody that you'd like to recommend to us, please let me know. But if something's going on and you want to talk about it again, you're
I think
welcome on the show.
that's a great idea. Probably around the midterms. Maybe that's the time to come back. Yeah.
Hey, I would love that. You know, maybe you can be our like the man on the inside. You can do all the dirty work for us, right? And tell us what to do.
Sounds good. All good. All right, Molly. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Howard. Thank you for tuning in to What Do We Do Next? I hope you guys like this. Please go check out the writing. That is my favorite form of civil disobedience that I have learned about this week. I'm going to subscribe and check it out. If Howard can do it, then we can read it. And so please go subscribe. Send it to people. If you have people that are like, I'm curious, I want to help, encourage them to join the newsletter as well. It definitely makes a difference. And until next time, please be excellent to each other, and I'll see you on the flip side.